There was a day in my generation when you'd preach the Bible and folks couldn't wait to get right. Brother Randy, when I was a young preacher, sometimes halfway through my sermon, people would get up out of their pews weeping and screaming and shaking and fall out on the altar and get right with God before you ever got done preaching. I hear it all the time. People say, I wish I'd have been around in the days of old. You couldn't have took it. You couldn't have. The men that trained me, you couldn't take them if they were alive today. I was reading the book the other day. This is the kind of preaching I love. J. Frank Norris was pastor of First Baptist Church of Dallas. And J. Frank Norris was running thousands. He ran 7,000 at that church in Dallas. And then he also pastored in Michigan at the same time and ran 7,000 there. He pastored 2 churches running 7,000 apiece and flew from one of his churches to the other. He had a pilot in his church. One of the wealthy men in his church came to him one Sunday morning after service and said, Dr. Norris, I've always loved coming here. I love to hear you preach. I've given a lot of money to this church, but I've got one problem. He said, when you preach on social drinking and liquor, it makes me so mad, I can't hardly stand it. He said, when I go home, it takes me a week to settle my wife down again. That's where the real problem was. And he said, I'm going to tell you, preacher, I hate to tell you, but if you're going to keep preaching on drinking, we're going to have to leave. J. Frank Norris said, there's the door. It says exit, get your family, get out of here, because I'm not quitting preaching on liquor for you or nobody else in the Fort Worth, Dallas area. I'm going to keep preaching on liquor. Less than 6 months later, in a drunken stupor, that same man hit the embankment of a bridge and it knocked his brains out of his head. They said J. Frank Norris went down there with a jar and put part of his brains in the jar. Stood in his pulpit in front of 7,000 people the next Sunday morning, put that jar on the pulpit and preached on the wages of sin is death. See, you couldn't take that. You'd sue J. Frank Norris. It would affect you psychologically. You can't take that kind of preaching. But if we're ever going to get the crown lifted back up on this country again, it's not going to come from the White House. It's going to come from the church house.